Welcome back to the VIBE Edu Podcast, as we've got the VIBE crew here with Kim Gameroz, Mitch Weathers, TJ Vari, and myself, Joshua Stamper, as we're coming back for a third episode of the leadership series. And today we're going to be talking about principal leadership. So really, the only one on screen that has been a principal is Mr. TJ Vari. So do you want to kick us off?
Sure, why not? When I start with this, when I talked about teacher leaders, I said that the teacher leader position, the department chair, the grade level leader, had the most influence over their peers, and I meant that. But the principal, I still believe to this day, after being a principal, supervisor, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, the principal of the school has more power than anybody else. And that doesn't mean they should have power over, people and exert that power in a bad way. But because the principal position is so isolated, and the bigger the district, the more autonomy they have in some cases, or they have mandates, but we can't see them. In fact, I was talking to an assistant superintendent today who said, we make these agreements and then I show up to the school 6 months later and they're not in place. And that's because of the autonomy of the principal, good or bad. So it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. But principals should recognize, principals listening, that they have a ton of autonomy over running their school. It's a super powerful position. And even in districts with strong mandates and strong systems, you still from day to day have probably the most responsibility over teachers and students and families of any position. And that's from my time as a principal and my time supervising principals. I think it's a really good thing for principals who have a strong vision. And I'll leave us with this and get some feedback from my colleagues here, is that principal autonomy, that principal power really needs to be funneled into a strong vision for what we want for kids and for what we want from teachers. And so the vision work is critical, and communicating that vision is just an awesome thing. And when I coach principals, I tell them that their brains should typically stay in 3 buckets: communicating the vision of the school, evaluating the people and programs, what's working, what doesn't, and innovation. What are we not doing what we could be doing? And so if they stay in those 3 buckets, wow, the power of the principal is awesome.
Question for you, TJ, for an aspiring principal. I think the practical side you can wrap your head around, the daily to do. But one of the first bucket you mentioned was the vision.
Yep.
How does somebody who's new to the job, where does that vision come from? How do they land there?
Well, I think first off, I think most people who want to be the principal of a school kind of have a vision for who they want to be. I mean, we always talk about instructional leadership, improving the student experience, improving helping teachers grow. We've talked about that on this show a lot. And I think beyond the principal, lots of people in schools, district office, coordinators, all have kind of that vision as well. But I think if you're new to a school, or even if you've been there a few years, if the vision is kind of on a shelf, that's a great place to start in terms of the trajectory and the future of where you're going to make the most impact. And I would have a vision team, and I would sit down with a group of people, your strongest teachers and students, maybe in upper grades, and some community members and parents, and say, this is the current vision statement that we have on our website. A lot of vision statements are so generic that they could be in any school. And I think that's not what we want that's not what the community wants in terms of what we're doing and what we're producing from the school. So start there, get a team of people and say, do we like this? Do we not like it? Because I'm getting ready to plaster whatever we decide on everywhere. I'm going to build a mural. I'm going to have it in the bathroom stalls. And I'm going to put it in every newsletter. I'm going to tattoo it on my forearm. Right? So, but if you're really living the vision of the school, there you go. See?
Josh has got it.
Yeah.
You're saying in that sense, leadership is a team sport.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I also think there's a vision, individual personal vision for you as a leader of that school. But I also think what TJ's talking about is like the vision for the campus. And that component does need to be something that's a team sport. That has to have from a group, because if you are solely the individual that makes that, how are you going to get buy-in?
Right. Josh, remind me what the name of your principal, school leader cohorts?
The Aspire to Lead cohort?
The Aspire to Lead cohort.
Mm-hmm.
Do you talk about, do you guys work on this in there?
Yeah. We just did our first session. That was something that I asked the individuals that were present if they had an individual leadership vision. And they said no. And I said, well, we're going to be working on one.
Well, because the job is so manic too. So if you don't put yourself in a mentorship community like you've created for leaders, I can see how you just get busy and maybe don't get around to doing it, both personally and for the school.
Yeah, and I talked to him about this too, is like some of the bigger districts have started to create like aspiring leadership programs or APs to principal programs. And the reason they do this is because if you grow in-house, it's really something that saves money for the district.
Right.
I mean, a lot of decisions as we know, are due to money. And so what they're finding is the capital is being used to go and use agencies to find candidates, bring them in, and then also use that money to train them, which is way more expensive than building in-house. Well, for smaller districts that don't have that, then you don't have an opportunity to sit down, reflect, and actually build this out. And so you don't have one time, but you also don't have anyone to give you kind of the bones of what that looks like to kind of assist in that vision, that personal vision. And so, for my cohort, I'm excited to be able to provide that little roadmap for them, at least from my point of view, is because I've gone into campuses, I didn't have that vision. And then what I was doing was I was taking on all of the expectations and the visions from other people, which wasn't my own identity.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of thinking, there's a conversation that I know I love it when my teachers do this with their students. It's usually around the beginning of, like in January, right? When we come back, it's like, 2026, like new year. And the conversation is, what do we want to stop doing? And just thinking classroom wise, right? In our classroom, what do we want to continue to do in our classroom? And then what do we want to start doing in our classroom? And it could be around feelings, it could be around actions, it could be around anything. But when you guys were talking, I was thinking, man, if I was a principal and I had this team, I would sit there with this team and go, okay, let's all be on the same page here. What do we want to stop doing here across our campus? Like, what is it that we want to completely stop? Like, is it something that we're taking out of our vision? Or is it some sort of action that we're doing, some sort of language that we've been using, some sort of, I don't know, maybe it's something about punishing children the way we've been punishing children, giving consequences. I don't know. What do we want to stop doing? And then what feels really good, right? What about this former vision? What about this culture that we've created? What do we want to continue to do? And then what TJ, I was thinking, like the innovation part, right? Like, what do we want to start doing? What's something new that we could do? So again, that you can feel like we were all part of this. Everybody laid out all the BS, right? Got it all off their chest. We've got this solidified vision down that feels really good, that you can feel good. Like, again, thinking if I'm a teacher and I'm walking into the bathroom and I see the vision, right? And it's on, I don't know, the door, let's just say, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm looking at it, I'm going, I don't believe in that. That is not my vision. I don't think that way, right? And then you're like, every single time you go to the bathroom, every day you go in there and you see that, it's going to irk you. It's not going to feel good. That culture, is it going to feel good across your campus? But if you were part of it and you walk in there and you see it, or it's on I love it, like when they have stuff displayed like on the mirrors or something, right? Like if you see that every day, it's like, yes, this is our vision. We're all in, and you go into your classroom. That feels good. That feels really good. But again, if you're a principal, having that conversation with your team, I think that's where it starts.
I think that's also the scary part and why people don't start with the vision work, or at least get to the vision work early. Because if you revamp a vision and you have input and you put the people at the table and you make a statement and you put it on the mirror and it's on the bathroom door, like you said, now you've got to live it.
Yeah.
Now you've got to support it. Now you've got to resource it.
Right.
And so I do think that strong vision and strong communication, like any principal listening, you've got to get that down. Even core values, like what are our core values? And these are the behaviors that we want to live. It's such a critical part of running an effective school. And if you don't buy it yet, just look at places like Patagonia and Google and Facebook. They have really strong vision statements and really strong core values, and they live them out.
I just want you to talk more, TJ. Like, I'm going to ask you, maybe I need to ask you questions, like how I did with the last episode with like talking about what does an AP do? Like maybe that's where I want to know, like for the teachers that are listening, maybe we've got some teachers listening who are, maybe they're upset with their principal. Maybe they're like frustrated with their administrators, right? So if you're thinking about like the way to do it, right? The way to walk the walk and talk the talk. Like, what does that look like as a principal?
Well, think about, the CEO of any organization. They're typically not mired in the weeds. So let's give some examples and for your teachers. If the principal's planning the awards assembly, the train is off the tracks. The principal should be at the awards assembly. Like I actually used this as an example with a principal one time because I was doing an observation and she was cutting the cake at the awards assembly. And there was a line of parents who wanted to talk to her in a big school after an hour ceremony. And she couldn't not cut the cake. There wasn't anybody else to cut the cake. She was plating the cake. And we had a conversation afterwards and I'm like, you can't be the person who cuts the cake, even if you like cutting cake. You have to be there walking around, shaking hands, communicating the vision, asking people how things are going, what should we do next? Again, the 3 buckets. If you're cutting the cake or you're in your office at night planning the awards assembly, you're not principaling. You may be doing an aspect of schooling, but that's not what a principal does, not an effective one. And I think teachers are so good and they desire to have such an impact that I bet there's a teacher on staff who would have planned that awards assembly. And there's probably people in the room who would have been happy to cut the cake. And then you're the principal. Like literally when we wake up in the morning, we should think about whatever we're wearing as a uniform. I'm the principal of the school. And I think that's a different mindset, but it's the vision, the core values. I'm the principal. Who's doing the work? And how can I evaluate the people and the programs to decide what innovation is coming down the line and to communicate the vision for that innovation? Those 3 things, if your brain is doing something, then those 3 things, something's not right. In my mind, as a person who coaches principals.
But don't you think, TJ, they need to have people around them to help hone that? Because I think people fall into that trap, principals specifically, where they are doing roles like you're talking about cutting the cake. I think that's a great analogy, where they need to have someone to, like a TJ Vari, to point that out, to say, no, that's not your role. That's not where you are best served. And maybe that's an AP or admin team. Maybe it's someone in the front office. Maybe it's a teacher group, a leadership group. But I think as a principal, you definitely need to be very intentional about who you put around you, not just a bunch of yes men or yes women, but people that are going to hold you to the fire or hold you accountable to make sure that you're doing those 3 things that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I always say every principal deserves a coach. And we've said it on this show a ton of times. I'll say it probably every episode. Every kid in every school deserves for their principal to have a coach. Every teacher in every school deserves for their principal to have a coach. It's your cohort. And I would say just a distinction, that personal vision that they have for themselves as a school leader is different than the vision that they need for the school.
Mm-hmm.
And that vision that they have for themselves as a school leader needs to be followed up with what I call a leadership development plan. That leadership development plan should include coaching, cohorts, mentoring, people who are going to come to the awards assembly and watch it go down and then say, what were you doing cutting the cake for 40 minutes?
I was just curious how many times we could say cutting the cake in like 5 minutes. That's got to be a record. But I think that's back to the vision of the almost like the job, the vision of the position, because I think there's a perception that you're at the top. I mean, of course, there's district leadership and whatnot above you, unless it's a really small district, and you're both. But in most cases, right, there's someone above you. But in terms of the school, we forget that, like, gosh, probably more than anybody on campus, if you're at the top, you need a coach, you need a mentor, you need those people around you. But it's not. I mean, do we have any idea, just from your experiences working with schools, like all four of us, how many principals do you know actively put themselves? Because sometimes it's a personal investment in me in this position, as opposed to a district saying, hey, there's funding for you for professional growth and development and whatnot. I know that both those kind of scenarios exist, but how often do you run into principals who are actively outside of the principals that you two mentor in your other job? So
I don't think many. I think if it's something where the district has the budget for it and then they assign that to the principals, I think that's when it occurs. When it's a new principal, I think that happens often. A new AP, a new principal. But even those, I don't think there's very many touch points during the school year. I think it's like once a month. And it's typically like a retired principal that used to work in the district who's attached to maybe a university. And they come back and there's a small little cohort of people that are new in the district that all come together for that. Now, obviously, the people that are on complete fire, like the people in Kim's communities, like they're going to pay out of pocket because they want to get better. And of course, there's principals that are out there all over this country that are doing that, but I don't see it as a high percentage. That's not been my experience. TJ, is that different in your world?
No, not at all. But I think the cultural shift is people figuring out either how to pay for it, because 4 to 6 sessions a year with a coach is affordable. Like if you're going to pay $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 to have those sessions out of pocket, and the return on that investment is going to be that your job and life feel better. Like, that sounds like a no-brainer to me. Coming from your salary, maybe even a write-off. I'm not a tax advisor and I don't play one on TV. But the other thing is, I would ask. Email the Department of Education tomorrow. Email your supervisor. Email your principal supervisor. Email the person in charge of professional development. Say, I want a coach. What's it going to take? Email the Department of Education. Say, do you guys provide any coaching for principals? Because I know of departments of education that do provide coaching for principals, and sometimes there's no principals to accept the coaching. There's a disconnect between the district and the school and the state, right?
Yeah.
By no fault of anybody. It's just there's a bank of coaches and they're not being used.
Yeah.
There's something to be said there. The principal that I've probably respect the most, now retired, attached to a university, supporting new principals in his district. He's phenomenal. But the principal has to be willing to engage in the coaching. It's really interesting that the people who they're literally running around serving cake. I mean, they're just putting fires out, and he's just there, like literally there, physically on campus. And after a while, it just stops trying because it doesn't sync up. It's just it's kind of interesting to me.
There's a trap there's a couple of traps that we actually put in our new book, Time, Tools, and Tactics of Instructional Leadership. And one of the traps to that, Mitch, is every principal thinks, most principals, I don't like to say every, but most principals think that their environment is so unique that the coach couldn't possibly help them. I know teachers are the same way, Kim. And I've been from New Jersey to California, from Florida to Seattle. Like, I'm telling you, schools are schools are schools. They all have some niche things, right?
Yep.
But schools are schools are schools. That's a trap. That's a mental trap. So I guarantee that principal's running around, cutting the cake. I'm going to keep saying it because you said how many times can we say it. So hopefully somebody's counting. Running
I'm just
around,
preoccupied with how I can weave it in now and everything I say.
and they think the coach on the side can't help them.
Right.
And it's just untrue.
And that may be true, right? It's not to say all coaches are great or coaching works, but at least try and see that. So I'm curious what would you say, I guess, Josh and TJ, because you've been in school leadership roles, to, let's say there's a teacher in Kim's community that is thinking, and I think I might, in a couple years, go into leadership, because that's the whole idea of like growing your own talent and having a pipeline. I personally work with a number of districts that if they don't take that seriously, they're not attracting talent. There's just people aren't coming to these areas where they're going or where the district is. But I'm just curious for that person that's like, it's got that little calling, that little thing that I never had, but some people do. I mean, you two are both have been teachers and now in leadership. So what would you say? What would you say to that teacher in Kim's community?
I have a whole book on it if they want.
First join Josh's cohort, then read his book, and you'll be set.
He's gonna grab.
It's just a small passion of mine.
Grab the
What would
teacher.
you say?
I would, to Josh's point, really, I would read the book. Like, I would read 2 books a week for as many years as it would take to get me to that next spot. And I would be very intentional about those 2 books a week. And if you could read 6, read 6. But I would put the 2 in 2 categories. And if you read 6, do 3 and 3. And one is on school leadership, instructional leadership, school culture, behavior, student behavior, all of the things related to school in that bucket. That's half of my reading list. The other half of my reading list is on pure leadership, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. Like, I'm reading John Cotter's work, Leading Change, Accelerate, and I'm going deep, deep, deep into pure leadership, how to influence people and how to direct change. And I'm getting every understanding that I can about what works in schools. Bob Marzano, Rick DeFore, because here's what happens when I show up to coach a principal. They're doing something. It seems cool. And I'm like, well, why did you decide to do that? And I was sitting on the beach this summer and I was talking to my friend and we thought it would be cool to have these mini teams. Like, well, where did that idea come from? I was like, well, it just emerged. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm like, but your PLCs don't work.
Right.
So did you read the PLC books?
Well, and idea is not clearly aligned to the vision where we started. Like, what's the why behind doing this? Just coming up with a good idea on the beach may not connect with the overall vision.
Well, having a few Mai Tais make you really
that can make you see it. Yeah,
you can see it. You can be really innovative, or it's just chasing the shiny object that a lot of schools fall into that trap of.
Huge.
Yeah.
What would you tell this person in Kim's community, Josh?
Oh, I talk
book?
about. Well, I'm gonna throw it to Kim after I say this, but I think of pitfalls, right, of aspiring leaders, and one of them is like you have to activate. You have to go and do something. You have to go knock on that door. That door is not going to open for you. And I think that's the misperception is that, I'm going to have a conversation with my principal and let them know I want to be a leader someday. I want to be a principal. And then they are going to provide all of these opportunities. And that's what I saw so many times is someone would be excited at the beginning of the school year, or maybe it's the summertime, they come in, I'm going to get my master's degree. I'm going to do this. I want to be, a principal someday. And then I never see him again the entire year. And it's like, well, how do you think you're going to then get that position when you get, let's pretend you do get an opportunity to sit at that table with either other principals in the district or other district leaders to get into that position, and they start asking you questions. Are you going to talk about what you have done, or are you going to talk about what you would do in that position? Because I can tell you those are two far different answers, and one's going to get you the job and the other one's not.
That's good. That means you should cut the cake when you see the principal. Go over there and cut it.
No, but as a metaphor for what you just said, yeah, like where can I? Because I've seen colleagues back when I was in the classroom. You could see the progression, like that was their vision for themselves. That's what they wanted to do, and it often was like, oh, they're leading the WASC visit. That whole thing, they just took that on. They're still teaching full time, and now they're taking care of the WASC report, or they're, whatever that role might be. Is that what you're referring to, Josh?
I literally beat down the door of my front office. They called me the office rat. I hated it, but it was a term of endearment because I never left. Because any time that I had, I would walk to the front office. And my classroom was the farthest distance from the campus to the front office, but I was always there. And I wasn't just there. I was asking, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I be a part of? What can I sit in it? What can I take off your plate? Can I do the master schedule? Like things that I had no business even asking, I asked. And I got every opportunity that I asked for.
You have to say if you asked there.
Because
sure.
They saw I was dedicated. They saw I was on fire. I was hungry. I was determined. I was going to become a leader, not only on this campus, but I'm going somewhere else. I'm gonna get promoted. So get out of my way. So I think that's the thing.
Is that something you would say? I mean, is that what we're looking for in people who are considering becoming a principal? That there's this
you better get uncomfortable. Yeah. Because how are you possibly going to get into that new role on day one and have any clue of what you're doing? Like, I felt like I had a pretty good grasp of the Dean of Students position when I got in there on day one, and I still got rocked every single day. And I probably had more experience than anyone else in the district as far as the opportunities that I had as a teacher. And I still got rocked. So that's the thing, is if you want to be successful, you better have those experiences prior to, one, to understand the role, but two, to have that transition be as seamless as possible. Now, is it going to be perfect? Of course not. You have to learn on the job, but at the same point, like you need to know, one, to be efficient and effective, but two, you need to know, do you even like the job? Is that something that you want to go into? Because talk about a shift and a change, that's huge. That's life altering as far as your profession. So if you don't even know if you like the job and then you get into it, how miserable are you going to be, and how ineffective are you going to be if you're in that role?
And the brilliant statement that you made earlier about, and you get to the job interview, are you going to talk about what you're going to do? Or are you going to talk about what you already did to contribute to the school? I planned the awards assembly. So I watched my principal do it, and she did great, but I didn't think the principal should have to do that. She could go do principal things, and I planned the awards assembly. So if I'm the next AP, I've already planned 3 awards assemblies for 4 different grade levels.
There wasn't a topic that they brought up that I didn't have experience in. I promise you that. Sorry, Kim.
I really want you to talk about, TJ, best practices of a day-to-day, the ins and outs, the best practices of day-to-day stuff that a principal has to do. But like literally the lens of best practices, this is what it should look like.
I know what he's going to say.
Yeah.
What am I going to say?
For breakfast.
One of the things you're going to say, that's a good point. Make sure you have calories in your body. Get in the classrooms.
I was going to say that too. Yep. I knew he was going to say that too. Go
ahead, TJ.
Well, I think first off, it starts with the beginning of the day. And I used to have mantras that I used, like literally in the car. And one of my mantras was every student, every teacher, every hallway, every classroom, every day. I said it. I mean, I know it by heart because I said it every single day. And then every student, I was at the door greeting the kids, and I literally would run. I remember getting a custom suit made one time, and the guy was like, "This is how I want it." And he was like, "That's a little loose. We should tighten that up." And I was like, "Dude, I got to have a phone clipped on, a walkie-talkie clipped on, and I need to be able to run in these." And the dude was like, "What kind of job do you have?" I'm like, "I got to run in this suit, bro. You got to make me a suit that I can run in." So we worked it out.
Did you tell him door-to-door sales?
Yeah, no. It was almost door-to-door sales because as soon as those kids came in, I went to every teacher. Like, even if I was running late and I'm down the hallway, I point down the hall and I'm like, "You got it?" And I give them fist pumps, go to every room. I said this one time recently in a room full of people, and one of my teachers was a new administrator in that room, and she was like, "He really did do that every single day." And so I checked on all. That's my first modality. And somebody's going to say, "Well, what about the parent who comes in, the bus driver, You've got to have systems so that you can do that 20 minutes, and anybody, unless it's an extreme emergency, can wait 20 minutes for you to get to all the teachers, all the students, all the classrooms, all the hallways." And so that's the first part of my day. And then I'm going to use time blocking to probably spend between 2.5 to 3, 2 to 3 on a regular basis, hours getting into classrooms. And so I'm going to do 4 to 6 walkthroughs with informal feedback to teachers. That's about 90 minutes. And I'm going to do another hour of time where I'm doing a post-observation conference, an observation, or a pre-observation conference depending on your system. So now it's 2 to 3 hours of my day are on instructional leadership. And then I'm going to make sure that every other ounce of time that I can spend is on, guess what? Communicating the vision, writing my newsletter, putting out blasts to parents, being on social media, whatever I can do to communicate the vision of the school, evaluating people and programs, looking at data, finding out what works, going to PLCs, talking to people. Is it working? Does it work? What's the curriculum resource? How's that working for you? What's the next unit? And thinking about innovation. What are we not doing that we should be doing? That's my day. And I used to do PD in my school. This is what's crazy. I think I've told you guys, I used to do PD in my school for administrators, principals. And when I would explain this to them, they would say, you're not, it's not like my school. Back to the unique. My walkie-talkie goes off all the time. I've said it on this show. And I would say, this is my walkie-talkie right here. It didn't go off once. So it's systems. It's always systems, coming back to systems to be, the supportive school leader that you can be. But if you're running around with your hair on fire, especially as we come up through January, when this show gets posted, you go back to school after the holidays and your hair is on fire through April and May, and you're not running a school. You're just getting through it, not leading through it, not growing through it. You're just getting through it. And so call Josh, call me, call us up. We'll get you a coach. There's plenty of coaches out there, and a lot of them are affordable.
Totally.
And the first thing you should ask a coach, and this is one of the first things I ask the people I coach, what's your day look like? So it's a great question, Kim. What's your day look like? Mm-hmm. Because I'll look at a school leader's day, and there'll be like 2 hours where it doesn't have anything on their calendar. I'm like, what'd you do then? And they're like, I don't even remember.
Fires, triage.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. I mean, I was thinking about that because when I was reading tell me the title of your new book again.
Time, Tools, and Tactics of Instructional Leadership, a Principal's Guide to Leading Learning.
When I started reading that book, I instantly was thinking of principals that I've been working with this school year and also past school years going, they need this book because their day, their morning didn't feel calm. It felt like they were putting out all the fires. And then as you were talking, I was thinking, this is the same but different. I love that phrase. It's the same but different for teachers. If your room is not running on systems, then you do feel like you are being pulled in all the directions and putting out fires all the time. And I would say they need to be your social emotional learning, your executive functioning systems and visuals and language that are running your classroom so that it can feel calm, because you want your principal job to feel calm. You want your teacher job to feel calm. You want the kids to feel calm, but it doesn't happen unless there's systems in place.
Yeah, I want to say two things, and Mitch is going to love this, so I want him to comment on it. But I one time had I had these people who came in to do principal for a day. They were usually CEOs of local organizations or nonprofits. And this one time, one guy followed me around for the day when I was a middle school principal, and he was like, "You are like a CEO." And I'm like, "Yeah, why is that strange?" And he said, "Because I've done this for years, and it's kind of like I'm chasing somebody around for them to get all the things they need to do to get done." And I'm like, wow, that's an exhausting job and a crazy existence. But you just kind of and I'm like, yeah, but it's systems. It's not the school. It's not me. It's systems that we've created. And then the comment that I would say about organization there for Mitch is, I was just in a school district in Colorado, and I was in this classroom. We were in several classrooms, and this really super organized teacher, I'm like, bins and pencils were color coded in a thing. And it was so organized. And I was like, this lady, I bet she's killing it. And as soon as I heard myself say that in my head, the tour guide goes, "This lady was the teacher of the year last year." And I thought to myself, after years and years and years of being on the teacher of the year committee and going around the districts and looking at the teachers of the year, they really are the most organized, most calm, most collected people. And their kids feel that way, and their classroom feels that way. And then you go in another room and there's like stacks of papers and ungraded work, and kids are like, "We turned in that project 3 weeks ago and we haven't gotten it back." How can kids be organized if we're not organized? And I think that's to your point about the feel of the school that the principal creates. Mm-hmm. And the dichotomy between that and a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
You guys, I just adore you. I just have to say, like, your brains, the way you guys think about all of this, I guess that's why this really does work. I mean, Josh, we've said it before, like, this just works, the four of us, but it works because, I mean, the way you see things, it's so clear. And that's the way I see things. When you say stuff, I'm like, oh my God, preach it louder, say it louder. Seriously. And I think for everybody who's listening right now, like, if any of this has resonated with any of you, please send it to your people. Send it to the people who think the way that we think, who need to hear this. Please share this stuff out, because I don't know, I'm just looking at you like, yeah, keep going. Just keep going. Yes.
Well, we could keep going, but we're coming up on time.
I know. I was looking at the clock myself. Mitch, do you want to comment on anything that TJ just said in regards to organization and systems? I didn't know if you had an itch that you needed to scratch.
I think it's true in any role, but I mean, my heart breaks for the teacher who struggles with executive dysfunction. We all do to some degree, but there's a shockingly high percentage of teachers that are like, you walk into the room and you're like, oh my gosh, and it's not even bad teacher or bad teaching. It's that, and that's why I asked you guys early on, like, what would you say to somebody who's considering it? They're drawn to that role. Because I don't think you can fabricate that, right? You got to be, I want to do this. I want to identify as a principal and do this. But if I don't know how to do it, and it's the same thing in the classroom, if I just don't naturally, and there's some rare few people that walk into the room and they're like, I just get this. This makes sense to me. Most people, it's not. It's learning over time. And it's in our second book, Sarah and I, we kind of explore this notion of like, because it's kind of commonplace at least in the classroom, is all the things you wish you knew the first year or two of teaching that you learned by trial and error for 6 or 7 years. And it's like, well, why are most people doing it that way? And implementing strategies that we know the research shows don't work. It's just what we've always done. So I think having, in the same way we're talking about finding mentorship, finding coaching, figuring out how to do the leadership role. It's the same thing with teachers, which is why Kim's community is so engaged and prolific and growing. And you get in there and you're like, holy crap. But there's that, what's not happening there is somebody left in isolation trying to figure out on their own and hopefully makes it through. You know, we know the attrition rates in the classroom are ridiculous the first 3 years. So when I hear that, instead of systems, I think the classroom word is systems, but it's routines. It's a routine for everything. And when we can decrease the interference that comes from ambiguity, and I don't have my stuff and I don't know the expectation, and increase automaticity through routine. I just know how to do this. So I'm not having to take any of my working memory capacity to just try to engage and keep up, which is exhausting and eventually it leads to behavior typically. But if we can, in the classroom sense, have those systems or those routines in place, but again, figuring all those out, I just am an advocate for don't do that. You know, maybe it's reading books, maybe it's coming to a webinar, maybe it's joining a community, and sure, you're going to iterate on things, but that process, there's systems and routines that are in place that have been proven that people could just use.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I tell a story in my first book of a teacher, no joke, talking about just basic organizational skills. Tell 2 stories. One, a teacher I was mentoring, English teacher, they were on their 4th essay of the school year, right? And after the observation, and we were kind of having a debrief, and I noticed 3 large stacks of papers on her desk, like noticeably large stacks of paper, unusually large stacks. And so I asked her, like, what are those? And she's like, oh, those are the other 3 essays we've written already this year. I'm like, well, why are they on your desk? She's like, I haven't gotten around to grading them yet. And I was like, well, then why are you writing the 4th essay? Like, you understand that it may not be happening, but you could be reinforcing negative habits and behavior. Like they don't know it. They're not learning through the process. And so I forbid her to assign anything else until everything was good. I'm like, you just no homework, no classwork. You have your lessons, but you just cannot grade. You can spot check. But this other teacher I tell a story of, this is no joke. She was a colleague of mine. She would start the school year with her desk clear, like clean, you know. And over the course of the school year, the piles would just start filling up to the point, and this is not an exaggeration, you couldn't see her behind the piles of paper. The kids were over there and her desk
wallpapers.
And I finally had to ask her, right? And this is a school that was using organized binder. She clearly wasn't, but I asked her about it one time and she said, yeah, it's just kind of like my system. And I'm like, how are you? I just got to ask, like, how are you finding anything? And she's like, you know, I just, you know, and she's, as a human, great and loved kids. And, you know, there's a lot of good going on there. But she said, you know, what I do is I just, at the end of the school year, I get one of those big bins, you know, they put out in the hallway at the end of the year and kids are emptying their lockers and all that stuff. And I literally just push everything off my desk into that.
Kim's going to have a stroke.
Start over next year. That's the truth.
But right? But why didn't you say, okay, but it's Wednesday, why don't we do that now?
Right.
We're waiting to the end of the school year. I have the inclination to sneak into that room at the end of the night and take all that stuff. And when they show up the next day, it's like, where's all my stuff? And I don't know. I have no idea what happened to that stuff. But we get us to start over now.
But and here's the sympathy there. It's like I think she just lacked an inclination towards systems and routines and needed that support. And they have to be really simple and they have to work for you and the kids. And when you find that magic place, all of a sudden it is a calm place. All of a sudden you can stand at the door high-fiving kids and saying hello as they're coming in, and everything's set and ready to go. And the lesson usually goes well. I mean, all of that is just routines and systems. So
can I say one more thing as a principal and then we'll wrap up?
Yes.
I had teachers like that. This is I don't know if people are going to like this or not, right? But I had teachers who were like that, and they were in the room for so long, and you couldn't get them to take the posters like lived in these rooms for years, and I was like a freak about that. So I would go to select group every year and say, you know what's great? We're going to have your room painted this summer.
Mm-hmm. That's good,
and I really meant it. And honestly, to a person, it was refreshing. They would freak out at first, but then when everything was bare and their room was painted and they get to selectively put stuff back and organize things the way that it should be, they felt so much better. And so, but the strategy wasn't sometimes I had to say, you've got to get all this stuff out of here. You can't work like this. I mean, there were times I had to say that, but once in a while, the strategy was, guess what? Blue team, you got picked for the paint this year.
Yeah,
there's a nudge for spring cleaning.
Yeah, the terminology, I don't know why it's escaping me right now, but it's a proven thing that when, in particular, the decorations or posters or, in a typical classroom, like the routines or expectations are posted, if they're not referenced periodically, ideally daily, so it's an active part of what we do. Kim's thing of like, you're touching this as you're doing this thing. Like if it's just there, kids literally stop seeing it after a very short period of time. Like it's not registering anymore. And yet we have all this crap around our classrooms, and it's that back to that intentionality. Like what's the point? And again, we do what we've kind of always has been done to us, but classrooms, and forgive me, I was a 9th grade teacher, but the primary teachers, they can over decorate. And we need, it's been shown like 25 to 30% blank space in the classroom, in particular for like direct instruction or giving directions or what, like just to decrease that interference. I'm going to tell one more story and then we can cut the cake.
Hey, we're on your time, Mitch. So
we are. I gotta
tell
go.
us when you give me like the signal, blow on your ear or something when you want me to shut it down.
I was a brand new teacher. Speaking of hoarders, okay, and this guy had been at the school for years, and I mean years, decades. And I was moving into a classroom he must have taught in at some point, but it was my new room, and it was old. This campus was built in 1895. It's the second oldest public high school in California. It's like, there's all these, like, imagine a big, really old science room is what it was. Like, it was very outdated, but there was all kinds of these really cool cabinets and all these things that you could use. And every square inch of every storage in the room was full of, the bigger boxes that all the printer paper comes in. You know what I'm talking about? There must have been 100 boxes full of student work, like back from like the 70s. Like I was looking through it. I'm like, these people are like, 30 years out of high school. What, and you don't even teach in this, my whole prep area. Everything was full, just boxes and boxes and boxes. So instead of painting, I went and found him at another room. He was in a different department by now. He was in social studies. And I said, I need some storage space in the classroom. Can you come and get your boxes? There's no way he could have moved them. And he kept him and Han and him and Han. And I just went rogue, moved them all out into the hallway and called the custodian. See ya. One day we're all gone. And he found out about it and he just like lost his mind. And I'm like, I need to decorate my room. Anyway, we're talking about leadership. that was your painting thing. I was just like, nope. See ya.
So with that, jump in the comics. What do you think about Mitch's procedures of getting rid of student work? I'm joking. All right. With that, I think we'll close this down. We're going to go down more rabbit holes.
Well, I have a reason for that, Josh, that I'm going to interrupt you and say, if there were routines and systems in place, a kid at the end of the year, the pertinent documentation, assignments, work they've done, the things that might set them up for success the next year, the artifacts that we want historic, that should all be with the kids.
Right.
They should have an organized binder that is a year-long portfolio of their effort and their learning over the course of the year. You need those artifacts, in sequential courses and in grade level, like as we're building, they shouldn't be in boxes in the back of a teacher's room. So that's why I purged. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
We went through a lot of different topics today. So if you feel like your hair is on fire, or you're cutting too much cake, or that you are going and running around doing triage and you need assistance from anyone on the screen, please go to our websites. We have courses, we have books, we have podcasts, we have cohorts, we have coaching, we have so many things to support you wherever you are in your educational journey. So please make sure that you're trying to reach out and allow us to support you in any way possible. With that, we are coming up on, we've got one more of the series, and then we're going to go into our mailbag. So we're always looking for questions. So if you're on YouTube or Spotify, feel free to use the comment section to fill out either a comment or a question that you want us to address in that mailbag episode. I do have a couple banked. I actually found a Google Doc that I created. So I do have some previous questions. So we might be going like pretty far back now. But if anyone has anything specifically for this leadership series or anything prior to, definitely reach out. You can hit up any of us on social media, via email, through our websites, or you can throw a comment in those two platforms. With that, I hope everyone has a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Can't wait to see you again as we are getting snowed in here in Colorado Springs. So, see you all.